Hello, everyone in the Facebook and Instagram world. It has been a while since I've been active and posting here. Um, Wanted to provide everyone a brief update on some happenings in our lives, as well as make a few announcements. I'm going to sort of do two parts to this video. The first part, I'm going to try to keep sort of politics out of it. I know a lot of us are weary of COVID talk and how political everything has become. So I'm going to try to keep my announcements toward the beginning, and then I'll have a section where I talk about some of the political happenings in our corner of the province a little bit later, so that those of you that wish to can avoid that. First announcement that needs to be made is that I am going to be stepping down as a counselor for Sioux Narrows Nestor Falls tomorrow at the general council meeting. There's a lot of different factors that have gone into that decision. It hasn't been an easy decision to make, but it's no longer possible for me to put the time and energy required into the position into it. And a big part of that is because we're not going to be in the area following this summer. Due to complicated financial situations with the neighborhood eatery and our retail store Bridge, we are essentially using the summer to sell off assets to avoid formal bankruptcy, and planning on moving to the United States to pursue other business interests after the summer is over here. That's been a really difficult realization to come to for Abby and I. The hardest part with all of that is sort of feeling like we're walking away from the dream of what Sioux Narrows Nestor Falls was becoming over the past few years, and what our part was in that, as well as just the relationships and connections we've made along the way. Our customer base has been absolutely fantastic. We've made lifelong friends through both of those business outreaches. And it's been just truly a privilege to be able to work as part of the business community in this township. The hardest part with all of that is sort of feeling like we're walking away from the dream of what Sioux Narrows Nestor Falls was becoming over the past few years, and what our part was in that, as well as just the relationships and connections we've made along the way. Our customer base has been absolutely fantastic. We've made lifelong friends through both of those business outreaches. And it's been just truly a privilege to be able to work as part of the business community in this township. So that is sort of the announcement that I have to make in relation to our future here. We're still not sure what all of the details of that look like. We're going to be taking the summer to sort all of that out. If there's a few different options that are potentially on the table in terms of what happens with the store and the restaurant, that will all be worked out. It's not going to involve us moving forward any longer. And so with us moving out of the municipality, while I'm sure we could get creative and find ways for me to fulfill my council position either remotely or by traveling back and forth, it doesn't feel to me like it's in the best interests of everyone locally if I'm not invested and plugged in locally. And so I'm stepping away permanently from that. Being in that position for the past, I guess, 2.5 years now has been one of the most challenging and fulfilling experiences of my life so far. I've learned so much through my colleagues across the district, from my constituents, from senior staff at the municipality here. I've truly enjoyed my time. It's really difficult for me to be prematurely ending my term, especially in a position where you all put me here, and it feels like I'm potentially letting people down, and that's been the hardest part of this. But it's definitely a decision that is putting our futures and my family first. And I feel that right now that's really important. So that's really my news. That's my announcement. I'm sure that, those of you that have questions have ways of reaching out. I'm happy to, communicate and discuss details with anyone who's interested. But that's sort of the nutshell of the situation for us in Sioux Narrows, Nestor Falls moving forward. As far as the political side of all of this, and really some of what's driving the situation, a lot of what has put us in this position has simply been completely running out of any form of trust in our government having our best interest in mind. And that is both the federal and provincial governments, but specifically the provincial government, just because, that's the sort of the authority that we operate under here as business owners in Ontario. And just the decision making over the past few months, and in my opinion, how it has deteriorated, the decisions that feel like they're completely devoid of logic, and really at this point, the only thing that it feels like it does is damage the little guy, small businesses, people with lower incomes are the people at this point feeling the brunt of the decision making. Because when Ontario announced that they were taking a regional approach and published their plan for that, it made a lot of sense. We're a 25 hour drive from Toronto, from our capital. And so to have their caseloads and their case numbers dictating our restrictions has never made sense to begin with. And multiple times now the province has just blatantly gone against their own regional plan and just put the province entirely under crazy restrictions, and restrictions that don't even make sense. Things like shoes and clothes are considered non-essential and are roped off in retail stores, while at the same time feel free to stand in a big line in a liquor store, stocking up on booze. Interesting that the province controls the flow of alcohol and cannabis, though, and is directly involved in alcohol sales in the province. So, with some of those things, then the answer is, well, turn to online shopping. Check out Amazon. Check out Walmart, and that's fair. But again, then look at who is affected. You have big corporations that have made record profits over the past, 12, 18 months, and multiple small businesses that are simply going under because they, for whatever reason, are viewed as a threat to spreading the virus, and to, people being out and about, and the big places aren't, which is just, again, it's insanity. Those of you that have shopped at Bridge know that, we can limit to 1 or 2 people at a time and sanitize everything they've touched. And people are safer there than, hundreds of people in Walmart touching everything and, nothing being sanitized. And I mean, you all know that. People see the inconsistencies, people are getting frustrated. But with this latest, stay-at-home order, it's just been really ironic to see that people are fed up and probably not following the orders. And so the case numbers, haven't really dropped that much. I saw a news report just this morning that, finally now things have dropped down. But we don't know at this point whether or not they would have without the lockdown, because for the first month and a half of the lockdown, we had the same number of, approximate, no daily active cases being reported. And so with all of that, it simply becomes point to the data that supports your narrative and go with it. The difficulty with that is the government is choosing to listen or look at data that only represents one small portion of health overall, and is completely overlooking people's, mental health, even people's physical health outside of COVID. In having things like, gyms and outdoor recreation banned. And we're one of the only places in the world taking these measures. I've seen, some local golf clubs and organizations promoting this, like Let Us Golf thing now that the season is starting. And we're the only spot globally from, the brief research that I've been able to do, that's actually banning golf as a sport. I mean, think of a golf course and how spread out you are. You're not in anyone's face or business or, space at all. That's not okay, but, feel free to stand bumper to bumper in Costco traffic, for whatever reason. It's just, it's looking at things in ways that doesn't make any sense. And, quite honestly, I don't think most of us signed up for the, government to act as our primary care physician anyway. People have the ability and means to make their own decisions on what's best for their health. And so with all of this, it's just been really frustrating to see a provincial government that slogan was that Ontario was open for business, just absolutely turn on the little business, and feel like, pad the pockets of the big lobbyists and corporations. Not to mention the fact that our premier is, directly involved in an organization that is responsible for the manufacturing of a lot of the signs and stickers and decals you see, sort of placed all over these days. So, I mean, just the whole thing is really frustrating to see the double standard. And so a big part of our decision is, even if things were, looking better on the horizon, what makes us want to come back to an area that we have no trust in our premier, we have no trust in our local representation, we have no trust in this government anymore, to not completely go back on their word whenever they feel like it, completely change their mind on a whim whenever they feel like it. And why would I invest more of my time and energy into this community for only, 2 months to pass? And what if they just decide again, oh, well, here comes winter, we're delaying school again, we're pulling the emergency brake, everybody's got to stay home. Because they're not even following their own, thought out plans at this point. And honestly, I have a hard time wrapping my head around how members of that government are not, standing up to it publicly, because at this point, it's just the public faith is completely eroded in the decisions, not even in the making good decisions, but in the decisions sticking. They could make an announcement tomorrow saying everything's open, we're back to business as usual, and I wouldn't come back to this community to start a business again, because in 2 weeks they could pull the emergency brake and screw us all over again. So the province, in my opinion, has completely lost control of the rudder, and I want nothing to do with investing all of my time and energy here. It's not something I can do anymore. And I'm very grateful that we're in the unique situation where we're able to get out. I feel for the local business community who doesn't have that options, because I am terrified that this is just the first of many. Businesses here are hurting, and the cutesy little announcements of 25,000 here and 20,000 here for businesses that are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, and their very livelihoods and equity just drying up before their eyes as this drags on for just no apparent reason at this point. It's not data driven, it's not numbers driven. There's something else going on. And if it is data and numbers driven, it's strictly out of Toronto, which it's far away from us as Houston, Texas. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever to take our cues from them. But here we are. There's nothing we can do about it. On top of that, it feels like Canada in general is just completely botching the entire, vaccine distribution, reopening plan rollout when you start looking at other countries and the way they're handling things, even just, re-entering the country and the type of tests that are available, and just arbitrary rules around making it as difficult as possible for common people to move around, which is interesting because it ends up being relatively classist in the way these rules are applied, because if you're wealthy, there's all kinds of loopholes you can jump through. If you're a wealthy Canadian citizen and you want to travel to the States, be my guest, fly. That's not a problem. The land borders are closed, the air borders are not. Even with testing, if tests aren't available to you, for free because you don't exhibit symptoms or you're not, in a certain demographic, I mean, feel free to line up and pay for them. But the majority of people can't afford it, and so they're hemmed in by the rules put in place. It's sickening to see. It's disturbing to see how quickly we moved from what I thought was a federal government that was trying to put its people first into, I don't even know what, it's baffling to me to even see the calls for people to, keep the border closed moving forward, where Canadians are looking at the US population coming up here, people that have properties here that could isolate for, their full 2 weeks, and people that contribute millions, tens of millions of dollars to not just our local economy, but the Canadian economy through tourism. And them saying, we don't want you, we don't need you. And they're just so naive to how much we really do. And those same people are saying, all right, your call, I'll go somewhere else. It's really sad to see. It's I've got friends with properties here in Sioux Narrows and Nestor Falls that are saying, I haven't been able to come for a year. We don't see anything changing on the horizon. I'd just as soon own property in northern Minnesota. The area doesn't change that much, but I don't have to deal with the Canadian politics, and that's just so devastating to our local economy. And it feels like a lot of people don't realize that. So hopefully through all of this, our experience isn't shared by many other people. I hope that us, sort of doing what we need to do doesn't stall the momentum of the community here, because there's been a lot of good, new business energy and momentum over the past few years. And I really hope that continues. I wish everyone well and success. But it's no longer something that we're going to be putting all of our time and energy into. So I look forward to discussing everything with anyone who's interested moving forward. Looking forward to see everyone. It's so good to be back, sitting in our house here in Sioux Narrows again. It's been a busy 2 months for us being away, but we're very excited to be back and plugged in here again for the summer. So thanks for taking the time to listen to my rambling, and we'll be in touch.